This is CS952, Introduction to Web Technologies and Design, and in this next module we're going to be creating a table, adding a table to our website, and then we're going to be adding a contact page as well. But first we're going to tackle the table. So I have Dreamweaver open. We're using our history page for the table. Include whatever information you want as a part of your table, whatever might be relevant to your website. In this case, I'm using some highlights from the history of the pencil in order to have some content to put in there. But if you've read the section on tables, you know tables can be used for a lot of different kinds of information. I'm going to double click on history and we'll get the history page to open. And we opened up in code view, which is fine. That's where we're starting off, in code view. Just like before, we're going to find that placeholder content and we're going to get rid of it. Just as before, you may have noticed that the page is entirely grayed out except for main content. And of course that's because everything on this page is all contained in the template, which we have locked down except for the main content, and that's the area of the page, that is the editable region where we can put in the content that's going to be unique to each page. So let's get rid of the main content. Again, you can highlight main content and delete it, or if you just click anywhere where it says main content and then click on in the status bar, instance editable, that will also highlight all of that content. So just like before, I'm going to hit delete or backspace, either one. That gets rid of that content. And then I'm going to hit enter, or if you're on a Mac, return a few times, just to give myself a little space. I'm going to hit my up arrow key to put myself right there in the middle between my opening and closing editable tags. And then Dreamweaver would like me to hit refresh or press F5. Once we've made changes to the code, Dreamweaver wants us to hit refresh so that it can redraw the page and make sure all the content is current. I've got my empty space here, and now I'm going to take advantage of those snippets that we created before. So I'm not going to have to go through all the steps of adding in a bootstrap container and then adding in a bootstrap grid row and going through all those steps. I'm going to use my snippet of code that we created to save a little time. So I can open up the snippet window. We can either go under Window and choose Snippets, or we can use the keyboard shortcut of Shift plus F9. Either one works. Either go to the top menu and choose Window and then select Snippets, or with your keyboard hold down the Shift key and press F9. So here are our snippets. Let's open these up a little bit so we can see what we have. And as you recall, our snippet was saved under Bootstrap, right? Under Bootstrap snippets. So I'm going to click on the little plus icon to expand that box. And if I scroll down at the very bottom, there is our starting code. This is what we want to add to our website. So I'm going to click on that. So we have it selected. If we look at the top of this dialog box, we can see there's all the code that we entered before that's been saved. Now to insert that onto our web page, all we need to do is just click on Insert. And now all that code put right into the web page, and we've saved ourselves all that time of having to go through all those steps. So I'm going to close my snippets. Now we do need to change the word gallery to history, because gallery, that was what we originally saved it as because we were working on the gallery page. So I just double clicked on the word gallery, and now I'm going to type history. H-I-S-T-O-R-Y, right? Because this is going to be our history page. And before I go any further, I'm going to click refresh, just like Dreamweaver wants me to. And I'm going to save my page. Now I'm going to place my cursor after the H2, right? This entire tag is my heading tag that says H2. I'm going to put my cursor after the H2, but before this closing div tag. In other words, I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter once just to give myself one extra line of space there. Now I'm going to go under Insert up here at the top, and I'm going to choose Table. And there's also a shortcut for Table. It's Control-Alt plus t. And Dreamweaver asked me for the dimensions of my table. Now in this case, I'm going to have 3 columns for my table. I already have a plan for what my table is going to look like. And I'm going to have 6 rows. So 3 columns across the top. We're going to have, like, I think it's date, and then something that happened, and then the person that's responsible for that. And then we're going to have 6 events. 6 rows, each one tells about a different event. And when we open up this table dialog box, we can see that we have choice of headers. We can choose no headers. We can choose left headers, and that means that whatever we have down the left-hand column, that's all going to be highlighted. We can choose a top header, which means anything across the top, that's all going to be highlighted. Or we could actually do both. And if you've looked at the information that introduces us to tables, there are examples, different ways that we can use these headers. In this case, we're going to choose the top row because we're going to have a brief description of what each column is going across the top. Now let me back up for just 1 second. I was talking but not doing. For my rows, I want to have 6 rows, and then for my columns, I'm going to have 3 columns. Now very importantly, we want to delete the table width. Older style web code, we would specify exactly what we want the width of our table to be, but we do not do that because we're using CSS now for controlling the dimensions and the size of our table. Also, the border thickness, again, we want to delete that. We don't want any values here. We don't want a table width or a border thickness or cell padding or cell spacing. We're going to leave all of that out. That can be hard-coded into the HTML, but we're going to use CSS to control all of these. Now, the caption is optional, but I'm going to type in a caption, which is, in my case, for my table, it's DEVELOPMENTS, developments in the history, HISTORY, of the pencil, PENCIL, because that's what this table is going to be all about. So we're ready now to have Dreamweaver insert the table for us. 6 rows, 3 columns. We're not providing any table width, thickness, cell padding, or cell spacing, and we are specifying that the header is going to be across the top. And as you recall, anything that's in the header, those fields, by default, the content is going to be bold and it's going to be centered. The text is going to be bold and centered. So now we can say OK. And Dreamweaver has created all this code for us. And this is one of the nicest features of Dreamweaver because this can be quite a bit to type out by hand. And again, Dreamweaver wants me to hit refresh, so I'm going to hit refresh. And I'm going to save all, and then we'll get started in the next video with actually adding the content to our table.